Trump floated the idea of replacing the income tax with tariffs. What do you think of this? Now, this is one of the things Trump does when he's at his rallies. He has his prepared speech on the teleprompter, but he'll riff and freelance and go outside the boundaries of that all the time. And he'll trial balloon ideas to try to get an idea of what the people think about it. And he said, we should get rid of the income tax entirely and replace it with tariffs. Because, by the way, that's mostly how America was funded before 1913, when the federal income tax became a thing, when they passed the 16th Amendment. And I heard this proposal and I'm like, and now granted, I'm the first guy in line to say that the federal income tax is the biggest pile of crap in the first place. It gives special favors to special groups, deductions and tax shelters to different people, different tax rates for different people. The income tax code in America is the biggest friggin' cluster of all time. And it is precisely the opposite of equality under the law, because there's all these special favors and exceptions and different rules for different people. And then people get upset. People aren't paying their fair share. And the tax code is the exact opposite of fair share. But the question is if you were to remove it, what would you replace it with? Trump wants to replace it with tariffs. Now, what are tariffs? Tariffs are a tax on the American people. Tariffs are taxes that are applied to imported goods that at the port of call, when they enter the United States, the importer company and the American company that imports it, that receives it from, the dock, that receives the container ship and all the stuff in it. They have to declare the value of that. And then they have to pay any appropriate tariffs. And those tariffs, are kind of bundled into the overall cost of the item that the American importer uses, and then resells that to distributors and who resell it to retailers, who then resell it to consumers. And all along that way, that tariff is built into it. Now, again, the whole point of tariffs, supposedly, is to protect American companies. We don't want any of that Japanese steel or that Chinese steel. We don't want, these companies overseas competing with America. We want to protect American jobs and American corporations. So what they do is they put these tariffs on goods that make imported goods artificially more expensive. So then as a consumer, we have the choice between buying the imported good that's been artificially increased in price because of the tariff, or we can buy the domestic made product, which is also really expensive for a lot of different reasons, which we can get into. But either way, that's a penalty on the American consumer. And on top of that, tariffs, you think, who do they benefit? Well, they benefit the workers at those manufacturing companies. That sounds great. But those people are selectively being protected by the tariff. And meanwhile, everyone else is having to pay the expense to protect them. It's, tariffs reward the few at the expense of the many. And what Trump wants to do is radically increase tariffs to the point where, prices of goods are going to shoot through the roof, and then we'll have even more inflation, more things that are going to be unaffordable. Now, granted, there wouldn't be an income tax, and again, I think this whole thing, first of all, is a bunch of baloney, because I think it's another trial balloon, got some people excited about it. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I mean, Trump, you can never believe him. You just don't ever believe a con man. But it's amazing to me that I think a lot of people are still convinced that China and other international countries or international companies are the ones that pay the tariff. And Trump is even saying that in his rallies. And that's the con man selling you a bag of goods that's fake, it's false. Tariffs are paid for by American companies. The whole point of a tariff is to raise the price of the good so it's no longer competitively priced against the American good. So they say China pays the tariffs. That's baloney. That is an abdication of reality. but it's interesting. So I know my opinion, if a country is subsidizing products, making them really inexpensive to import into America, we should be buying as much of those as we want. But these tariffs block them. And it's not just Trump, by the way, it's Biden too. Biden has kept a lot of the Trump tariffs, has increased some of the Trump tariffs. There's a I think, if I have this right, a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. Here in America, we're supposed to be, you know, all about clean energy and EVs, and they're being promoted. And in China, they've been able to mass manufacture EVs for a very low price. But we don't want them in America because they're too cheap, too inexpensive. It will hurt the American automobile industry. I mean, what the hell? I mean, that is something that goes counter to what Democrats claim to support, which is environmentalism and trying to help make things more affordable for the average person. That's one of the objections to EVs, is that they're too expensive. But here we have tariffs coming from Biden. I mean, it's just nuts. But let's talk about the one thing that he did, another